Welcome to the Inspiration North podcast, inspiring stories from inspirational people and how they found their passion, their true north. I'm James Eves.
And I'm Michelle Minikin, and this is the Inspiration North podcast.
Today's episode, Trust in Serendipity with Lucy Kendall. We talk about if you have a job that you love, there's no reason to not do it, COCO's Never More Needed campaign to support ongoing projects, and hear all about her secret talent.
Lucy is CEO of COCO, Comrades of Children Overseas, an international charity based in Newcastle upon Tyne in the UK. Lucy has worked at COCO for 17 years, working her way up from volunteer to a position of leadership, shaping the development and direction of COCO's fundraising, governance and project management. Her major interests are led by a passion for international relations, equality, education, development, poverty alleviation and commitment to accountability. An advocate for skill sharing and authenticity, Lucy regularly takes part in activities for COCO, including trekking Mount Kilimanjaro, running the Great North Run and cycling across Maasai Land in Kenya.
Well, good morning to you. No, good afternoon even, Lucy. How are you today?
I'm not too bad, thank you very much. All the better for chatting to you two.
Oh, too kind, thank you. Shall we get started with our first question? So when you were little, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I didn't. I had probably about 3 different phases of thinking this is what I want to be. I think like lots of little girls, I wanted to be famous, and I wanted to be a famous singer on the West End especially. And I completely blame my mother for that, because she used to sing Miss Saigon, Les Miserables around the house all the time. And I was very lucky she would take me to London to go and see performances and things. So I was convinced that I was going to have a life on the stage until you meet the dreaded careers advisor at school who just thinks you're completely insane and tells you that you need to do a test that tells you that you're going to be a police officer or something. And I also went through a phase where I wanted to be an archaeologist. I think that came about with a visit to the Hancock Museum when it was called the Hancock Museum, and they had an Egyptian display on and Tutankhamun and everything, and I thought, wow, that looks really interesting. And then later on I wanted to be a BBC war correspondent, because I thought Kate Adie was just the coolest person in the world. And I used to pretend in my bedroom quite a lot to be corresponding from Bosnia underneath my bed with my hairbrush as a microphone. And so I had absolutely no idea. I was very easily influenced and continue to be so. So whatever was cool or fashionable or going on in my life at that time. So I didn't have a clue.
So what did you do? So leaving school?
I was I think one of the things that my mum and dad did for me that was probably the best thing that they ever could was send me to boarding school. And they sent me because I was a bit of a handful at high school. I went through the primary school, middle school, and did 1 year of high school. And I was getting in trouble all the time. I was quite opinionated. I got bullied a bit, not something that sort of keeps me awake at night, but I would have opinions and not be quiet about them and end up in trouble, and my bag would get thrown in the river at school, and I'd go home and mum would be like, not another bag, Lucy, come on. And they were very supportive parents, but they clearly saw that something wasn't right, and the state school system wasn't right for me. And mum had been to boarding school, and she said, so you can go to this one or that one. One of them was Polam Hall in Darlington, and the other one was Casterton Girls' School in the Lake District. And I just looked at the uniforms, and one of them was yellow and the other one was blue, and blue's my favourite colour. So I was like, I'll go to that one. And it was slightly further away from home as well. So I thought, I can get to all sorts if I'm even further away from home. So I did what's quite unusual and went to boarding school when I was 14. So it was like the start of GCSE kind of time. And it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. And and it's the reason that I got into the work that I got into, and everything, and opportunities just opened up to me. I mean, people say all the time, be aware of your privilege, and when I look back, I really, really am aware that I was incredibly privileged. People do great things going to state school, but there wasn't enough kind of rules and regulations for me. I needed somebody to tell me where I needed to be at every hour of the day and keep an eye on me, and I probably needed to sleep at school and live at school to actually perform well. So actually it was I had loads of great friends at school. I think girls boarding schools, you always become more like sisters than friends anyway. And one of the girls that I met, Kat, I remember talking to her after we did our A-levels, and we were all doing our A-level exams, and it was getting towards the end of school, and Kat said, "What are you going to do when you finish school?" And I said, "Do you know what? I don't know. I'm going to go home. I might go and like work for a little while. I'm not sure." And she said, "I'm going to see my dad. He lives in Zimbabwe." And I was like, "What? Your dad lives in Zimbabwe? That's crazy. It's really far away, isn't it?" And she was like, "Yeah, it's pretty far away." I did A-level geography as well. I should have known exactly where Zimbabwe was. And we had a chat about it, and she said, "Why don't you come?" And I was like, "Are you sure?" And she said, "I'm working on a safari park, and Dad might be able to get you a job too." So I asked my mum and dad, and I think they were probably just glad I was doing something relatively cultural and different. And so I went off to Zimbabwe and worked on a safari park with Kat for 3 months when I was 18 years old. And from the moment I stepped off the plane, there was just something about the country, about the people, about the heat, the smell, the sounds. I just absolutely fell in love with it. I was supposed to be doing, I was going to do a degree in art history. That's what I was really interested in. And I thought I might end up showing people around the Tate Modern or something. But then when I went to Zimbabwe, I got my A-level results in a store cupboard on a safari park on a lake. And it was very random. I was on the phone, and I think we got them faxed through in those days, for anyone who remembers faxes. And then I phoned my mum to tell her about my results, and I'd been predicted an A in art history, and I got a D. And I was really upset about that, because I was pretty good at art history, so something had gone drastically wrong. But I got a C in geography, and I was like, okay, and I've really enjoyed being in Africa. Maybe I need to have a rethink about what I want to do. So I sat in that store cupboard. I was a bit upset to start off with, and then I thought, maybe this is a sign. Maybe I'm not supposed to be an art historian. So gave it a bit more thought, and then filled out my UCAS form and sent it off to do geography at Sheffield Hallam, because my results weren't that good, so I was never going to go to like a red brick uni. But I went to, I ended up getting a place at Sheffield Hallam, and one of my lecturers was South African, and she was from Durban. And she was incredible. She was a great teacher. She was really young and cool. And she was a really good educator. And when I finished uni, I didn't know what I wanted to do either. And she said, "What are you thinking about doing?" And I said, "Well, apparently the government are giving people £7,000 to be teachers." And she was like, "Lucy, don't be a teacher just for £7,000. This is the rest of your life." And here's me with like student debt, thinking, "Oh, someone's going to give me money. I'll be a teacher. I'll go and do teaching." And she said, "What do you really want to do?" And I said, "Well, I really enjoyed doing all of the modules about development and poverty alleviation and African geography and migration and why people ended up where they were, and the history of how the continent was carved up after World War II. And I just thought, that's the kind of stuff I'm really interested in." And she said, "Why don't you do a master's in Durban? Go and live in Africa, go and experience it, go and travel, go to South Africa and travel to other African countries and just really eat, sleep and breathe it for a while." And that was probably another one of the best pieces of advice that I ever had. So I did, and I went and I did my degree, and I discovered COCO while I was over there. So it was all very serendipitous, which is just as well, because I couldn't make a decision back then to save myself.
Well, it is the fact that there's so much pressure on you at age 18 or even 16 before you choose your A-levels to make a decision that will have, you know, potentially an impact on the rest of your life. Well, what do I want to be when I grow up? Lots of people don't know, but it's almost you're forced into choosing some kind of random path. Whereas in like France or in America, you go to college and you can experience lots of different things, you know, rather than just going, right, I'm going to learn all about psychology or geography or history or whatever it is for 3 years. Then you get there and you think, oh.
And I think it can be quite, you know, things are quite academic. I remember being at a girls' boarding school that does produce really incredible, intelligent women. There's a huge pressure on you to be right up there with those like peers, and you choose subjects. I chose subjects that my teachers recommended I did because I would do well in them, so that they thought that I would get A's at A levels, and it was all about getting the A's and getting the B's. But the teachers were great, and there were quite a lot of people like me that I would always consider myself. I'm a 2-1 person. So when I did my degree, I got a 2-1, and I'm really proud of my 2-1 because it means that I'm clever enough, but I also went out and partied and experienced life and didn't really take everything so seriously that I can't look back at university with some really fond memories as well. And I think I approach most things like that. Things have got to be, you know, you've got to be serious and you've got to be professional, but you've also got to enjoy what you're doing. Otherwise, what's the point? So, and I think I do that in everything that I do in life. So I learned that from a very early age, and I'm really proud that I got a 2-1, but I was never going to be like top of the class at anything. But I could do a lot of things okay. So, but then you kind of get this pressure on you. What are you going to excel at? What are you going to be brilliant at? And I don't think anybody knows that until they've, you know, really experienced life a little bit. So it was a big decision to make, but and all I really knew when I left Zimbabwe was I love this continent and I want to come back here. So whatever my job's going to be in the future, I want it to bring me back to different countries in Africa and explore this incredibly diverse culture and like amazing countries and people. And that was, you know, that was my reason for doing my degree, and I just managed to get in to do well enough to be able to get a place. So yeah.
Excellent. So tell us about the I can't say the word.
Serendipity.
That's it. Didn't put my teeth in.
The lucky path.
Yeah.
It's a bit easier.
Yeah, thanks.
It was really strange. I was doing my master's in Durban, and I was doing my research on the impact of HIV/AIDS on children in the area, because it has one of the highest rates of HIV prevalence in the country. And to do that, I needed to go into some of the sort of quite difficult to access areas, you know, slums, shanty towns, whatever you want to call them. And to do that, I was told it would be much safer if I got a car. So I went and rented a really cool old-fashioned VW Golf. They have loads of them in South Africa. They're very, very cool. And I was feeling great, off to do some research. And I got stuck at some traffic lights, and this vehicle pulled up next to me. And it was a big white van, and it had written on the side of it, COCO, in this logo that I recognised. And it was the two O's. One of them was a sad face and one of them was a happy face. And I was sure I'd seen it somewhere before, and I couldn't place it, and it bugged me for ages. Back then, we did have internet, but it was all dial-up, so you wouldn't like automatically go on your phone and Google it. So it was just sitting there in the back of my head, and I was like, I know I've seen that somewhere before, but I'm not sure where. And then I went to interview some social care workers that worked in a baby's home in a beautiful suburb of Durban, and they took children in. A lot of the time, women would abandon their babies if they were HIV positive themselves. So there'd be a lot of babies found dumped at hospitals, some of them even in dustbins. Some of the stories were absolutely horrific. But what these women didn't know is that sometimes their babies were born HIV negative, but they wouldn't know. So they would abandon the baby thinking that it was going to have a really short lifespan, and they'd end up in this fantastic organisation in Durban. So I went to interview some of their workers about where that problem was stemming from and the kind of work that they were doing. And I was flicking through their annual report while I was waiting to interview someone. And I got to the back of it and it said, "Many thanks to our wonderful donors." And it had a list of them and it said COCO, Newcastle upon Tyne. And I was like, that's weird. And so I said to them, "I'm from Newcastle upon Tyne. Who's this donor that supported you?" And they're like, "Oh, lovely organisation. They send people out here every year and they run this double marathon and they raise money and it goes into the baby's home to help look after them." And I was like, that's incredible. That's so weird. So I called my mum and for our weekly phone call, and I said, the strangest thing happened. And I heard about this charity called COCO, and I was sure I recognised the logo. And she said, "Of course you recognise the logo. Your dad and I went to one of their fundraisers and they gave everyone a little shot glass that had the logo printed on it. And the shot glass had been sitting on my mum's kitchen windowsill just above the sink forever. So every time I'd gone to the kitchen sink, I'd seen it and it kind of like imprinted in my brain, but I'd never thought to ask them what it was or where they'd got it from." And she said, "Oh, it's Steve Cram's charity. Maybe he'll give you a job. You should write to him." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I got in touch with them just before I finished my master's. It'll be in like November time. The South African academic year is January to December. And I got in touch with them and asked them if they had any jobs. I got an email back from a lady saying that they were really sorry, but they didn't have any jobs at the moment. And I went back tenacious as ever and said, "Maybe I could volunteer for you when I get back, because I've just seen some of the work that you've been doing in South Africa and I'd love to help if I can." And then I got an email from the co-founder, Jim, who came back and said, "So by volunteering, do you mean you'll just work for us for free?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I mean." And he said, "That sounds brilliant. That would be great. Why don't you get in touch with us?" And so I went for coffee with him when I got back and we had a chat, and I did a report for them. And then in the following February, it must have been on my 24th birthday, they interviewed me for a job. And I was in a really unique position because I'd just done a bit of work for them. They didn't really know what direction they were headed in and asked me to write a report about what direction I thought they should be headed in, and then essentially gave me a lot of scope to write my own job description. So I kind of ended up with my dream job just a couple of months out of university, and I absolutely loved it. And that was February 2004, and I've been there ever since. It's that good. So yeah,
That's awesome. So talk to us a little bit more about what it is that you do.
So when I started off, there was just a small team of us. There was 3 of us, and gradually, when we changed the kind of direction of the charity, we started doing more stuff in South Africa, and I started opening up to my networks in other parts of Africa. So we started doing work in Tanzania and Kenya, and I was the project coordinator to start off with. And the idea was that I just coordinated the programs in Africa, but from the UK. I did everything from taking runners out to South Africa and driving a vehicle and following them for 2 double marathons, which is a very, very long day. But I was in a car and they were running, so that's fine. And so taking them out, making sure they had a good time and that they raised lots of money for us, to kind of ordering stationery and answering the telephone. So I kind of did a bit of everything. And then after a few years, I was promoted to operations manager, and we moved to our office in Blandford Square. And it was suddenly quite a lot of responsibility and quite a lot of meetings, and it became less kind of jump on a plane and go to Africa and kind of, write reports and do a bit of fundraising, and more like, okay, this charity is really sort of taking off. We need to get to grips with what we have to do to grow it as best we can. And I think one of the things that I'm really glad I did was I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd never ran a business before. I didn't know the Northeast very well. I had a great board who were really helpful and supportive. And at the time, I don't know if you've met Caroline Theobald, but she was was on our board, and she knows everyone in the Northeast. So she had a networking organisation, and she invited me along to my first ever networking event, and I remember being absolutely petrified because I didn't really understand the point. I was like, so I'm going to come to a room full of people, have a glass of wine, and talk to them about what I do, and apparently that's going to be good for business. And it just didn't make sense to me at all, that it was kind of this staged environment, and where I just thought everything was by luck and who you happen to meet. But of course, if you don't get out there and meet people, then you can't do that. And now I'm a massive fan of networking and do plenty of it with every organisation I can in the Northeast. And it was really great that we did that, because through that we've got support from quite a few local businesses, and I just gradually worked my way up to chief exec, and I've been chief exec for 10 years now. But I think when you're chief exec at a charity, it might sound really important and glamorous, but I still do everything from cleaning the toilets to going to, big important meetings. And I quite like the variety, to be honest. I think that's one of the things that's kept me in the job for such a long time, is no day is the same. And I learn something new every single day. And I get the opportunity to meet so many different people. We work with schools, we work with businesses, universities, and then there's the great bits when you get to go out to East Africa and see what all the hard work has managed to achieve. And some of the experiences that I've had have been incredible, like climbing mountains, cycling across Maasai Land, like just incredible things. And I think if you have a job that you love, then there's no reason to not do it.
No, it's lucky, and that word that I can't say, that you have managed to find quite quickly, I think, in your career, something that you absolutely adore to do. So it's great.
Yeah.
I love as well how there are all these different signs: the shot glass, the white van, the fact that it's in Newcastle as a base, some definite strong signs from the universe.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And definitely.
And it's always the case, isn't it, that I mean, they're always, I mean, we can maybe get onto that next, but with something that you love and enjoy, when there are lots of hours or lots of things to do, there are more difficult times, it makes it worthwhile, because you can see the good that's actually coming from what you're doing.
Yeah, I definitely think that if the outcome of my work didn't have such a sort of strong connection with what my values are and what's important to me, that I probably would have thrown in the towel 3 or 4 times in the past. But it's been that's and especially recently, I know everyone's had a really difficult time during this pandemic, but and some mornings, I'm sure I'm not the only one, I just don't really want to get out of bed. And I don't want to, I've said this to Michelle before, don't want to adult today. I just want to hide under my duvet and watch Jane the Virgin on Netflix and do.
I love that.
Nothing.
I finished it now though, so it's like,
oh, don't tell me the ending. But it's just that kind of thing, and you have days like that, and especially through lockdown. I think I heard someone say the other day that through lockdown every night's been like a Friday night, and they've been boozing, and I'm like, not really if you've been working. Well, I could have done that, but I would have woken up every single day with a bad head and not been able to function. And when your job is, I mean, it's the thing that pays the bills, but when it's also the thing that makes sure that thousands and thousands of kids get to go to school every day, you can't not adult, or you can maybe have the occasional day where you give yourself a break, which has been a hard lesson for me to learn. I was very bad at doing that for a long time, but especially when your whole team is furloughed, and actually the buck really does stop with you, and if you don't just get up, turn on your laptop and face the day, there are going to be really awful consequences for people who really don't deserve it. So just, put on your big girl pants and just get on with it. I've had to sort of say to myself on a regular basis.
I love that.
Yeah, I've got someone sent me a little care package during lockdown. Someone that I work with at Durham University, got these little cards in there. So and I'm not usually a fan of that kind of stuff, but they just have really good messages on them, you know, like that, like, you know, just to keep you. Actually, it's the same with the Action for Happiness stuff. Those little messages that you get that just say that you can change your outlook on the day. Because some mornings I wake up and I'm like, how am I going to shake this just dark cloud feeling, and how am I going to get rid of it? And I think it's really important to have something worth shaking off the dark clouds for and getting on with. So I've been really lucky in that sense that, you know, there's, yes, everyone has to go to work to make a living, but I feel like I have to go to work for people that I genuinely care about. So it kind of gives you that extra oomph when you're not quite in the zone, which has definitely been tested over the past few months, for sure.
Yes, it has. It's just been a very, very strange time. And that feeling of impending doom. it's like what? Yeah, and it's just generalized anxiety, because, you know, the more you watch, read, listen to the news and, you know, Facebook and all that stuff, I've decided, enough is enough. I'm giving up the news for October because I can't cope with the US election. So
well, funnily enough, I stopped watching the news because I realised that it was the first thing that I did in the morning when I woke up. I would wake up, go downstairs, make a coffee, and put the news on and find out what was going on in the world. And it is really important to stay abreast of what's going on. I completely understand that, but I needed to do something to get me in a positive mindset before I even looked at the news. And now I can go a whole day without checking the news, and sometimes more than a whole day, but you hear it by word of mouth anyway, and, you know, someone will let me know if we're going into lockdown again. I know the rules. I'm being careful. I'm working from home, not seeing anyone. I've got the saddest life in the world. And so, you know, I don't think you can watch it too much, because sometimes it can overwhelm even the most positive of people. So I'm going to sound like a real self-help book now, but I started doing yoga, and I didn't think I'd like yoga, and I didn't think I'd stick with it, and I only did it because my cousin was running yoga classes online, and I wanted to support her and her business. But actually I found it's a really good way to kind of just wake yourself up in the morning, have a few stretches. It doesn't have to be as onerous as anything, and you just give it a whirl. And then I kind of woken myself up, had a good stretch, feel a little bit more energized, and not just got up and seen, you know, doom and gloom or Donald Trump or all of the above on the news first thing in the morning. So I think it's really important. I know we all talk about self-care and stuff, but I do think you've got to find something that works for you. One of the best things during lockdown was being forced to go for a walk every day. Like, everyone was talking about their walks and where they were going, and I was like, actually, I've lived here for 5 years and I've never really been for a walk. I just get up, get in the car and go to work, or get in the car and go and see friends. So it's been quite nice exploring my local area and finding out that in Newcastle in the northeast there's so many beautiful places that you could go for a walk. And when they said you could finally get in your car and go somewhere to go for a walk, that got even more exciting. And I think that's been, who would have thought that a simple thing like going out for a walk would make such a difference? But I think it does, especially when we're trapped in our home offices and don't have colleagues to talk to. And I think it's really important to get out there and get a bit of fresh air.
No, definitely. It's a self-care September with Action for Happiness this month. So there's lots of very good tips. No.
On topic, yes.
On topic. So tell us a little bit about your new campaign that you have at COCO.
Well, obviously, things have been tough for everybody. It was supposed to be our 20th anniversary this year, so we had a whole host of events planned. We do a lot of events at COCO anyway, but we had to cancel some of the really big ones, like our golf day at Slaley Hall, which usually brings in a significant amount of money, usually about £50,000, and we would have been having a ball later this year, and there was lots of things planned. The Great North Run was cancelled, London Marathon was cancelled, and we have people who run these events for us and raise quite a lot of money. So the first thing we did when lockdown hit is we had a look at what we were going to have to scrap, and we took out about £130,000 from our income pipeline for 3 months, which was big. and a real shock to the system. So we had to cut back. We've done lots of cost-cutting initiatives, and the government furlough scheme's been really helpful. We've given up our head office in Newcastle, which has been very emotional. But then we can cut costs till the cows come home, but then we needed to raise the money as well. So there was a national campaign launched called Never More Needed, because there's so many charities in the UK that are struggling right now. And so we've launched our campaign in line with that to support the three kind of programs that we run through COCO. So our whole intention is to give kids access to education where they wouldn't normally have it. But we don't just work with children, we work with their parents, their caregivers and their teachers. So we build sustainable schools out of sustainable materials, and we put in water harvesting and food forests so kids can eat and drink fresh water. And we often have to build dormitories so they don't have to walk too far. So that's our Schools for Life section of the programme, which has been it's been really challenging because schools closed and teachers weren't getting paid because children weren't going, and they make a small financial contribution to go to school. And we've managed to keep teachers in jobs and do some training with them during this really difficult time, which I think has been really good for them. So they've remembered their purpose and been able to kind of develop themselves. And then alongside that, we work with parents to give them small loans so they can start their own businesses. And we also do a lot of sustainable agriculture training, because 90% of the parents that we work with work in agriculture. We work in really rural, hard to reach areas. So if we can teach them how to get a better yield from their crop by using composting systems and irrigation systems, then they can increase their income and not need aid dependence from UK charities. So everything that we do is with the intention for people to be able to take control of their own lives and have their own income. So our Never More Needed campaign was launched this month, and we're just trying to raise funds to ensure that we can continue doing all that really great work, because we've supported thousands and thousands of people over the years, and if we stop now, it would just be catastrophic for so many people. So we've been calling on individual supporters, corporate supporters, and asking them if they can support us in any way at all. And we're very lucky that we have a lot of really loyal individual supporters, but our biggest battle is kind of getting the message out there and telling more and more people about the work that we're doing. We might be based in the Northeast, but we are an international organisation, and the work that we're doing is truly making a difference. We just want to be able to get through this rocky bit and still be here next spring when hopefully we can put our events back on again. So so it's going well. Thankfully, my wonderful fundraising manager Matt has come back 2 days a week, so he's set up the campaign, and we've got it all on the COCO website and various social media channels as well. So we're just sharing the good stories of what we've been able to do and encouraging people to support us if they can.
That's great. So Matt's been on the podcast as well, hasn't he?
He certainly has. He's very busy right now. He's he's doing all his adventure things this week. So I'm without my partner in crime today, but he's a great addition to the charity. Brings a lot of enthusiasm and fun to meetings and conversations. So, and he's got loads of plans for us next year. He's just, like all of us, desperate for restrictions to be lifted if and when it is safe to do so, of course. But we want to get back to doing our Kilimanjaro challenges and our Machu Picchu challenges, and there's all sorts of stuff that we had planned for this year that's kind of been just flagged to 2021. And I know that Matt's as keen as anyone. We were fighting over the overseas challenges this year, and I was like, I want to do Machu Picchu, and he's like, well, I want to do Everest Base Camp. So the two of us are going to have a competition to see who can recruit the most people.
Well, yeah, it's keeping it all fun, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And if we can raise a bit of money in the meantime and keep all of these programs running, then we're doing our bit and keeping it all afloat.
Awesome.
Fabulous.
So thank you ever so much for sharing your story with us, Lucy. We're going to move on to the random question section.
Quick fire questions.
Thanks, James. So question number 1 is, what is the coolest animal you've seen in the wild?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Because I just thought, no, it wasn't in the wild. I just saw a llama the other day and realised that I love them, but that was on a llama farm, so that's not in the wild. I think the coolest animal I've seen in the wild is probably, I'm really torn. They're really, really hard to see. It was wild dogs in Zimbabwe. You don't see them ever. And Kat and I were on a little weekend safari trip, and we saw a pack of wild dogs, and nobody believed us because we didn't obviously have our cameras ready, but they were absolutely incredible. They've got really bright colours on them. They're absolutely stunning. Oh, now that I've said that, I want to change my answer.
Fine.
That's fine.
What's the other cool animal?
The other cool. Well, when I went scuba diving just off the coast of Zanzibar a few years ago, and we were on our way to go and do a deep dive, and on the way out there, the driver of the boat said, there's a whale shark, get in the water. And I was like, are you sure? Is that safe? You said shark, but I didn't realise how beautiful they were, and they're completely harmless. But so I tipped into the water backwards off the boat, as you do, holding my nose, and then was just looking around and trying to see this great big whale shark. And then it was right next to me, and I had to really move myself out of the way because you're not allowed to touch them. And it was huge and brown with little white spots, and it was absolutely enormous. And I just looked below, and there was a whole family of them, and they were just kind of circling underneath us. And it was probably the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely amazing. Whale sharks are beautiful.
Yeah, Jaws stops me getting in water generally. I think I've got post-traumatic whatever because of Jaws, watching it too young, and even like North Sea, I'm a bit not sure about this. Like,
I think you might be okay in the North Sea.
Question number 2. Which cheesy song do you love?
Oh, so many. I'm a massive Madonna fan, so I constantly listen to Madonna. What was I singing at the top of my voice the other day?
Papa Don't Preach.
No, I think it was which one is it?
Like a Prayer?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. And doing the actions as well, like on my own in the house doing the cleaning. Why not? I love any Madonna songs. I absolutely adore them, and I still listen to all those albums now. Holiday is another one that I really like. Full blast in the car, singing my head off. Anything sort of. Can we call Madonna cheesy, or will she find me and kill me? Is she cheesy? She's probably cheesy to like my 11-year-old niece, who'd be like, "Who is Madonna?"
Well, I quite often listen to Evita, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right.
That's Madonna.
My sister was a big Madonna fan growing up, so in the back of the car on long trips, she'd be singing away to True Blue and all these other. So that's why my musical knowledge has been expanded into Madonna songs.
That's it. Okie dokie. So, number
quite uplifting.
It's slush, and it reminds you of childhood as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It's like the easier times where you didn't have to adult.
Yeah.
Okay, so question number 3 is, what is your secret talent?
Oh, it's so difficult on a podcast because you can't actually see, but I have double jointed fingers, so I can, like, I'm going to show you, but I can like bend them like that, and I can like squash the things, and I bend them in front of my niece, and it makes her feel physically sick. So my bendy double jointed fingers is my secret talent.
Well, we are recording this, so we can make a little video if you wanted us to.
So everyone can see how freakishly weird my fingers are.
Oh, that's funny.
TV.
I wish I had something cooler. Maybe I need to work on a cool secret talent.
That's a good one. So if we go to the final question, we take the DeLorean, we pick you up, and we take you back to your 18-year-old self, what kind of advice do you think you would give?
Well, yeah, I gave this a bit of thought, and I think I would probably say, if you really want it, you can do it, but just because you can doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And I know it's quite a long one, but I think everyone says to you that you can do anything that you set your mind to. And you take that with a pinch of salt, that, you know, you need to have certain skills and requirements to do things. But I think if there's anything that you truly want to do in life, you can do it if you really set your mind to it. But just because you suddenly realize that you can do something, you probably need to give it a bit of thought before you embark upon it. Not too much thought, but I do think it's important to think it through, because if I did everything that I thought I could, I'd probably be in a right mess by now. But I think that's probably what I'd tell my 18-year-old self. But I was very lucky in that I had people around me telling me that all the time. I've always had parents that have said, go for it, kid, give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? And yeah, I think I would pass that on for sure.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. It has been absolutely awesome talking to you. You've been on the list since we started this, so literally just getting around to doing you now. Sorry.
Oh, it's lovely. It's really nice to virtually see you both.
Yeah, you too.
To have a chat. Breaks up the day a little bit, a lot.
No, it's been lovely to see you, and hopefully in real life at some point we'll be allowed to have coffee.
That would be lovely. That would be really nice.
So for the listeners, what's the best place to find you if they'd like to get more information?
Well, more information about COCO is really easy. We're coco.org.uk, and our appeal's on there now if anybody would like to take a look. We're also on every social media channel that you can imagine, and usually as COCO Charity. So we're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it. And I'm quite active on LinkedIn, because I've been told that I have to be. But I've been quite enjoying it, virtually speaking to people.
Great. Thank you to Matt.
Yes, thanks, Matt. Can't wait for my book to arrive. It should have arrived by the time this podcast goes out, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think they should be here anytime soon. I'm really looking forward to it, and just like indulging in sitting on the sofa and opening a brand new book and knowing the person that's written it is quite interesting. I've never done that before, so yeah.
Yes. And I'll be like, James, we didn't know about this bit.
You'll have to get him on for part 2.
Yes, you will. Oh, good idea.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's really lovely to see you. And
you.
We'll speak soon.
And yeah, if you fancy a cuppa anytime, just holler. Just here on my own in my house, talking to myself.
Have you not got a basketball called Wilson to talk to?
Oh, that's such a good idea. Maybe I should make myself a friend. No, well, hopefully things will get a bit better. And in the meantime, we've got Zoom and socially distanced walks and get-togethers, so that'll do for now.
Awesome. Thank you ever so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you get back to your very busy day. Thank you for squeezing me in.
You too.
Thanks everyone for listening. Check out all the show notes at inspirationnorth.com. Join us again for the next episode, when we'll be chatting to another inspirational person. If you like this, subscribe and tell your friends. If you didn't like this, subscribe anyway and tell everybody.